Hello and welcome to Mythmakers. Mythmakers is the podcast for fantasy fans and creatives, brought to you by the Oxford Centre for Fantasy. My name is Julia Golding, an author and director of the Oxford Centre for Fantasy. And today I'm joined by Matt Fox, creator of the Magic of Middle-earth exhibition, currently showing at the Willis Museum, Basingstoke, Hampshire in the UK, and this exhibition is open until the 16th of October. Hi Matt, so would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to get this dream job for any Tolkien fan?
Hello Julia, thanks very much for having me on the Mythmakers podcast. Yes, I've been a collector all my life, and a recent study in The Guardian actually showed that 1 in 3 British people will admit to collecting something, however modest, however humble. But I've really got that gene within me, and I've done several big collections in my life. I've collected vintage Star Wars toys and movie posters. I also collect 1980s memorabilia from toys and games and BMX bikes and all those type of things. And I'm a massive fan and collector of everything Middle-earth related, including Tolkien, which would be the books and the first editions that everybody wants to try and get their hands on, but also what's come beyond that, and the adaptations from the movies to video games and toys, music, artworks, and of course the films as well. So they say that collecting is a sickness and sharing it is the only cure for that sickness. So this has been a fantastic chance to exhibit all my collection in one place, which I've done within the Magic of Middle-earth, and get it up there on the walls and get it in display cabinets. And it's a free exhibition and people can come along and see it. And I don't feel like such a loony anymore by having this big collection just sort of tucked away in my own house.
Yeah, I really like that idea. I think one of the great sort of developments of the whole kind of fan culture is that now we're all able to share it. We no longer feel quite so crazy on our own trying to explain why we really like Tolkien or 1980s so much. So you've got your own collection in the exhibition. So if someone was going to go along within the next month or so, if they're lucky enough to be in the area of Basingstoke, what kind of thing will they see when they walk in? Have you got 2 or 3 favourite exhibits that you'd like to tempt us with?
I have to say, I love the artworks in particular, and one of my favourite artists. Well, actually, it's not one person; it's 2 people. It's the brothers Hildebrandt, and they painted a lot of Middle-earth calendars and artwork. And we've got a lovely big print of Smaug, and this is. If you have a chance to Google Smaug by the brothers Hildebrandt, you won't have seen Smaug drawn quite like this before. He looks huge. He's a big sort of corpulent on a bed of golden treasure, as if he's just fat and lazy from eating all of the dwarves. It's a really beautiful rendition of Smaug, and we've got that sort of paired up with an actual treasure hoard in the cabinet, and the sculpture from Weta Workshop, and that shows the Smaug that was the adaptation from the movies. And the movies did a sort of a different approach to the dragon. They did the sort of the wyvern 2-legged version of a dragon. Although, as a small bit of trivia, in the very first scene in the Hobbit, you get the flashback of Smaug devouring Erebor. Just very briefly, you get catch a glimpse of him with 4 legs. So the dragon became 2-legged, sort of partway through the production. I think that's one of the great things you can see. Another thing that we created specifically for this exhibition was a diorama. And it's a diorama of the Battle of Helm's Deep. And to construct this, I used they're called Toy Biz action figures. They're sort of about 8 inches tall, and all the Uruk-hais wearing the armor and carrying the spears and whatnot. And what we didn't really realize is because the figures are so big, the actual Helm's Deep was going to have to be pretty huge as well. But luckily, I've got a very talented friend called Amina Kaufman who created the Hornburg Wall and the gatehouse, and some sort of siege ladders of weapons and the battering ram. So there's this big elaborate diorama that I sort of spent a whole day putting figures into one by one by one, where you can see a great big display of the Battle of Helm's Deep, and that's quite spectacular. You can look at it for ages, and there's lots of different details to see in there. And I'd say another thing that I particularly like, which is fun for families, is we have a little kind of a big, well, I say a little, but it's actually a very big bar stool, as if you can sort of sit there, as if you're a hobbit sitting in the Green Dragon with a great big oversized tankard as well, and it sort of miniaturizes you. So it's a great spot to have a selfie and make yourself look like a little hobbit sitting on the bar stool.
Oh, that's brilliant! I remember going to see at the Science Museum in London the exhibition that was accompanying the films way back in the beginning of the 2000s. I took my kids, and to this day I've got this picture of us sitting on the cart, the Gandalf and Frodo cart from the beginning with the forced perspective, with me as tiny and them as huge, and they were like little creatures at the time. They were hobbit-sized children, so that was huge fun. So I'm looking forward to sitting on that bar stool.
Yes, it's fun. I mean, I wanted to make sure that this is an exhibition that the diehard sort of people of our generation that could enjoy as well. But you have to make it equally fun for kids as well. Absolutely.
And what's so interesting about having the Battle of Helm's Deep done as miniatures is that, of course, the films back at the first set of films did much more miniature work than the later ones, didn't it? So you're going back to the early Weta workshop approach, as opposed to the all within a digital sort of environment one.
Yes, they were incredible, and obviously they weren't named miniatures. They were called bigatures for the sake of that production, weren't they? And they lived up to their name.
So Fantastic. You've done your own bigature, yeah, that's great.
Yes,
yeah. I can see there must be a problem about storing this, but anyway, we will worry about storage. We'll see it's beautifully on display at the moment, so storage isn't an issue. So, what do you think it's taught you about Tolkien as you've assembled the collection?
That's a good question. I would say that fantasy and science fiction are often sort of lumped together in the bookshops, on that same sort of shelf. But the evocation of nature in fantasy has no parallel across the sci-fi, and few writers really evoke the natural world as well as Tolkien does.
Oh, I'm so pleased you say that, because that's completely my take as well. Brilliant. Carry on.
Yes. Well, I'd actually go so far. Some critics use that as about to hit him and say that he cares more about describing landscapes than about describing the characters in some places. But he was far-sighted in terms of his environmentalism, and he was particularly passionate about trees. And from his imagination sprung Treebeard, protector of the forest. And I think people are slowly coming around to his way of thinking, that actually trees may be a really decisive element in averting an environmental catastrophe, and that's something that I sort of wanted to bring across in the exhibition, and the exhibition supports the Woodland Trust as well, I should say. That's something that I think I've kind of got from Tolkien, and perhaps I wouldn't care quite so much about that if I hadn't read Tolkien, and I think that's something, a gift that he's giving us across the years, from a time when it wasn't seen as particularly important, perhaps, but now it's becoming very pressingly important.
So I'm really interested that you're also a collector of other memorabilia. You mentioned 1980s stuff to start with. I expect Stranger Things must be up your alley in that case, with its evocation
Yes.
of the 1980s. What do you notice in the difference between the sort of quality of the things that were produced in the 80s and the Tolkien artifacts that you can buy, like the miniatures and other things? Do you feel there's a difference in approach?
I love the 80s for its kind of, the colours, and there was this big explosion of being able to put electronics within toys, and of course video games. They kind of made sort of fledgling steps in the 60s and 70s, but they really came into their own in the 80s. As sort of a Tolkien collector, or within the 80s, there's not a huge amount actually. It was a fairly quiet period. At the tail end of the 70s, we had the Ralph Bakshi movie. And there was a small toy line that came out to accompany that. They were sort of scaled the same way Star Wars figures are scaled, but they really didn't do very well. They didn't have great play value. There weren't many accessories, and it was a very small toy line, so they didn't sell well. And that, conversely, not selling well means actually they're really quite valuable today. And they're not quite as high as Star Wars figures on the card prices, but those figures are still pretty desirable. In particular, there's a ring wraith on a steed, and if you want to find one of those sort of mint, then you're going to have to spend into the thousands to acquire that one.
Yeah, that's amazing. I do remember, this is showing my age now, that in the very early day of home home computers, there was a Hobbit game that took absolutely forever to load. And it was very much a very simple click to go left, go right, going through the following in Bilbo's footsteps. But that was the very first computer game I ever played, the adventure style computer game. It's lucky it didn't put us all off, because it really was a lesson in patience, that game.
Yes, previously to that, there had been a few generic role-playing games like Colossal Cave and Adventure that were sort of, within the Middle-earth sphere. But The Hobbit by Melbourne House, ZX Spectrum, that was the first Middle-earth themed game. It was actually made by a couple of Australians, Veronica Megler, put the game together, and it was the first game really to be a text adventure, but also have graphical tableaus. So you'd actually you'd have the text at the bottom that you're in the Hobbit hole, Bilbo's house, but then above it you'd have this great picture, and the picture would sort of draw before your eyes, because the Spectrum wasn't powerful enough to render it in one image. So you'd get the little green door would be drawn in there, and you'd see a bit of the landscape. And as a child, seeing this for the first time and actually seeing my TV now is interactive. I can actually do things on the TV, rather than just passively watch BBC 1 and 2. It was amazing. So I have very fond memories of The Hobbit.
Yeah, I'm sure there should be a secret club of all of us who spent that summer holiday in in the 80s doing that game. Now, I would certainly be a card-carrying member of that club. So do you have any plans to take your exhibition elsewhere, as you've now got this collection, if people are interested in seeing it?
Yes, indeed. It is. It's a touring exhibition, and it's going to be visiting museums all around the country. So I can't really sort of make the announcements of where and when it's going to be at this time. But watch this space, and it'll be on our Facebook page, The Magic of Middle Earth. But it will indeed be hopefully coming to a part of the country near you. If Basingstoke is too far away for you.
And what about if we've got people over in America? Would you be temptable to? Because a lot of our listeners are over there. Would you be temptable to take it abroad?
Well, absolutely. It's not, Middle Earth isn't something that's specifically British, and Middle Earth collecting has got a fantastic global audience. So it could indeed go to America or to any other country across Europe. So that'd be fantastic to do so.
Okay, so we'll put a link in the show notes. So if anyone's listening who wants to tempt Matt to bring his exhibition their way, you'll be able to contact them through their Facebook page. So I have a few kind of more general questions now for you. And the first one I wanted to ask you is, do you have any favourite Tolkien trivia that you would like to share? I mean, you've actually already shared a few bits, but perhaps from the filmmaking process, for example. Mind you, I'm not sure you can beat the Smaug with 4 legs and 2 legs. That's pretty... You knocked it out of the park with that one.
I'll keep my trivia in the 80s, as you know that I particularly enjoyed that decade. And it's the rock group Marillion. They had hits in the 80s with a couple of big hits called Kaylee and Lavender. And that group, they were named after Tolkien's book, The Silmarillion. In fact, they originally began life as Silmarillion, but they decided to shorten it to Marillion to avoid legal issues. So yes, that's my nugget of trivia for you.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sure there's actually quite a surprising number of firms named after Tolkien themed things like Palantir and others. I wonder how they negotiated that. Anyway, good luck to them if they are dealing with the Tolkien estate. They're very fierce about guarding the copyright, which is as it should be. So I've also now got a quick fire round for you just to test out your instincts. Okay, it's not just about Tolkien. Matt hasn't been given this in advance, so he's got to answer right sort of genuinely in a few seconds. A couple of them are about other Oxford fantasy writers, which is also our remit. So, are you ready, Matt?
I'm ready.
The Hobbit or the Silmarillion?
The Hobbit.
Lembas or Farmer Maggot's mushrooms?
Lembas, yes.
Elf or dwarf?
Elf has to be. I want to live forever.
Okay, and now moving a bit away from Tolkien. Down a rabbit hole or through a looking glass?
I think I'll go through the looking glass, yes.
Okay, and now this is a choice. Peter's sword or Lucy's cordial?
Oh, I think I'll go with Peter's sword. I've always kind of liked swords. Yes.
I was wondering if you're going to answer that as a collector or as, which does the most good, because, the cordial that heals people is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think the
collector came out there.
The hero sword, yeah, the hero sword. That their prop store would rather like to have that in one of their auction lots, I'm sure.
Definitely. Actually, that's one of my favourite moments is when that sword reappears later. But anyway, so I also have a standard section in the podcast where I talk about where in the world is the best place for something. So any fantasy world, anywhere. It can be sci-fi, it can be, epic fantasy, anything. And in your honour, we're going to go for where in the world is the best collection. So this could be something like the White Witch's spooky statue gallery in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, or indeed the Hogwarts pictures, the interactive talking pictures in Harry Potter. So do you have a favourite where in the world collection?
I think I'm going to have to go with Fëanor's workshop, where he crafted the very finest that the elves have ever seen. So it's got to be really good, and created the 3 Silmarils because when they got stolen, he went on a mad mission to get them back. And I think any collector would tell you that having something stolen from your collection is not nice, and you'll be looking all over the place for them. So I think I think Fëanor was quite right to do what he did. It may be a bit of a murderous rampage too far, but he did want those Silmarils back. So I'm going for Fëanor's collection with his jewellery. Okay,
that's a very first age answer there. Now that's absolutely fascinating that you really relate to Fëanor as a collector. I think that's the first time I've heard that. It's going to make me think of, because I've always thought it's wrongly placed greed, but now I can see there is another side to this story. But anyway, or maybe it's a coded thing about copyright. Talking about copyright earlier, because having your stuff stolen is pretty grim.
Yes, I think treasure within all of Tolkien's literature is usually seen as something fairly evil, something usually a corrupting influence, whether it's the Arkenstone or the Silmarils or the Ring or the treasure hoard of Smaug.
Sends lots of people mad.
Yes, yeah. And the good things in life are simple, song, and poetry, and beer, and good company, and I think everybody relates to that really. And in Tolkien's writing, it's the way to be.
Yeah, but we still also can root for, the occasional artifact.
Just a little bit, yes. Just the chest of treasure, as Bilbo, comes away with it. That's fine. Yeah, go with that.
I was thinking about my favourite collection, and so one has come out whilst we've been talking, which is actually a C.S. Lewis one when they go back in Prince Caspian and they go into Cair Paravel, which they don't recognise to start with, and then they find the armoury, which has Peter's sword, hence the connection, and all the other things except Susan's horn. And the idea of going back to a place that but you don't recognise, to see your own stuff as a collection, I think is fascinating. But the one I was also thinking of is from a different fantasy world series. It's the Philip Reeves Immortal Engines. With London has a version of the Museum of London which has artefacts from ancient history, including our history, as part of what they're sort of scavenging. So I like the idea of a scavengers museum. All very powerful stuff.
Yes.
So Matt, that's great. Thank you so much for talking to us. And I hope that people listening to this who are within striking distance of Basingstoke in Hampshire until the 16th of October will take time out to go and sit on the bar stool and take their selfie and envy your collection. And we look forward to hearing it travelling around the country in the months to come. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Julia. It was a real pleasure. Thank you.